I'm Jay Tucker. I'm the priest in charge here at Christ Church, and I'm joined this evening by our panelists from my left and your right, Imam Salim Talbot of the Bermuda Islamic Cultural Center. Good to have you. Baruch Yisyan, my cousin. You call each other cousin. I got to do the research, make sure that's a real connection. And I just learned, complicate, my cousins. And amen. Thank you, really say it. And Mr. Devil Darrow, who I've learned is a cousin. He named all of my father and all his brothers. And so, good to have you, sir. We are waiting on Stacy Lee Williams of Kerr, as well as Dr. Zena Dawn Trott, who's coming to us in her capacity as a therapist with Next Level Counseling. I thought it'd be really neat if we could begin our meeting tonight, our forum tonight, by a time of silence, out of respect for those who have transitioned this earthly life for eternity. Those who have had their lives snuffed out because of violence. And then we will have a prayer. But this is the way that I want us to engage in prayer tonight. Because I'm well aware that we have a number of faith traditions in the room. And so what is a good way of engaging in this holistic approach of prayer is to allow each of you, as you're so inspired, to have a one-line prayer like, Lord, I thank you for this life. And when we go around the room, we will, Father Cedric, good to have you, sir. God bless you. And as we go around the room, we will have offered prayer that we believe will be pleasing to the Most High God. Amen. Come on in, Stacy. Nice to have you. Stacy Williams of Kerr. I got caught up in some of that traffic too. Okay, so as I mentioned, we will just allow for a moment of silence, and then we will lead off with words of prayer as we pray together collectively. Oh God, we remember loved ones who have transitioned this earthly life for eternity by violence.
Father, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. Lord, eu agradeço por Deus esse dia, Pai, minha palavra de graça, por Deus.
Heavenly Father, thank you for us and strength. Thank you for the opportunity to gather in this manner.
May the Lord bless and keep each one present in this evening.
Father God, we pray for hope.
Dear God, Heavenly Father, I just thank you for the gift of salvation.
Oh God, you have heard the prayers of your people, spoken and unspoken. We thank you for your presence among us tonight, and for the inspiration of our conversation. Amen. I want to take a moment to recognize what has brought us here. There are a few of us who have been engaging in conversation for a little while. Stacy Lee, let me use this because we are actually streaming tonight. So let me welcome those who are joining us by streaming platform. We have been in an ongoing conversation, a few of us, and perhaps some of you, in different areas, different circles of the community, about what we are seeing in this beautiful island of Bermuda. The work that is being done by each of our panelists at some level has brought us together. I want to acknowledge the mindset and energy of Brother Rolf in particular, because after seeing an interview and hearing an interview that I was a part of, he got on the phone and challenged me right away. And so what has brought us here is a number of conversations, but one in particular that I had with Brother Rolf, and I want to thank you, sir, for the challenge. So a couple of weeks ago now, we heard about a young mother being killed while she was in her own shop, minding her own business. Killed in cold blood, just before 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And what a shock it was to us all. It happened just a few feet away from where another murder had happened only days before. And it gave all of us pause. It caused us to question some things. My good friend, Melody Masera, offered this as a way of stating the crisis that she sees it as a poet in our community, as an educator in our community. She says that I regret not being able to accept the invitation to be on this esteemed and important panel, but I could not in good conscience forego the opportunity to share what I hope will be instructive in this moment. Our young people need several paths to wholeness, and this is one of them. She says that I am an anthropologist, educated at Temple University as a presidential fellow with degrees in African and African American history. My life's work as an African-centered educator, author, public speaker, and poet is deeply rooted in teaching, enlightening, and empowering the community of children and adults with lessons emanating from global Black history and culture. I share this because Bermuda's crisis is a reflection of a deeply rooted lack of identity Our young people do not know who they are. They are adrift, alienated, because they can't envision a creatively productive life in the home of their birth. They have gone to school and learned little to nothing about their ancestors' genius, their contribution, struggles, and determination to overcome obstacles and live. 25 years ago, my work was introduced to the Bermuda public school system at the middle school level. Our shade rites of passage was designed to provide a global, Pan-African perspective complementary to the middle school social studies curriculum. It also shared universal values clothed in beautiful African fabric. Dubbed character education, it was enthusiastically embraced by Rowan Middle School in the heart of North Hamilton. Students learned of ancient African empires long before Europe existed. They learned of African contributions that literally became the foundation of world civilization. They learned universal values of God from the people of Canada: truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, order, and reciprocity. In addition to teaching a history previously not taught, they learned 4 Ashe objectives. Number 1, I am valuable and have genius. 2, my history and culture are sources of knowledge and lessons to be learned. 3, I must develop my character in order to be successful in life. And 4, the world is waiting for me to contribute my gifts and talents. Tonight, we have not come to diagnose something that we already know. We come to have a time deal with some root problems, causations. And as our panelists are given some time to address all of us for about 5 minutes each, hear what they have observed. Well, okay, well, we get here late. Who wants to go first? Amen.
Assalamu alaikum. I think most of you know that the meaning of breathing. I get the breathing because it is a breathing of peace. Salutations, we all pray for peace, you know. As adults, even the children in the schools, in elementary, middle, high school, there's certainly be someone. They go the entire day and they're being bullied by somebody, or they just feel a bit lonely. So, I mean, we as adults, we have to learn to seek peace. You know, like verbally, thoughts, verbally, but with the sincere intention of asking God Almighty to grant us peace. You know, because when I say Assalamu alaikum, I'm asking God Almighty to give us peace. All of peace that we also need. And it's interesting because even the word salam, as-salam, the-salam, is one of the attributes of God himself. It's one of the attributes of God. And that is that he is the granter of peace. He is peace. He is peace. And so it's only natural and fitting that we ask God Almighty for peace. Having said that, the question is, how do we achieve peace? How can we find peace? So why not go to God Almighty and ask Him for peace? But before we can ask for peace, we have to submit to God Almighty, because He's the one who created us. He knows us. He knows our nature. You know, He knows us inside out. As adults, sometimes we tell our children we know them better than they know themselves, right? And it's true. We saw them in that naked state as babies, exiting the womb, and especially the women, they know about that. You know, they carried the little clock in the womb for 9 months, and they had to nurture that child while the child was in the womb. And they risked their own life, because carrying a baby is not easy. Obviously, I'm a man, I don't know anything about it, but I've read a bit, and I've got a wife, and, you know, God bless me with 7 children, so I have a little bit of outside experience, you know, in that sense. So I'm saying that to say that the woman, the females who have children, they know what it is to carry a child for 9 months and then have the child into the womb, and then that must be a great sign of relief, and feels like it must be a very, very exhilarating experience too, when the baby enters the womb. My point is that you have to nurture the child. That's the point. And likewise, we have to nurture our children. The little children, whether they be babies or not, they could be infants, they could be toddlers, they could be, you know, whatever age, they could be teenagers. And even after they leave that age, maybe they even 25, 30, they still need our presence. We need to pass on knowledge to them to help them to grow. And they help us to grow too, because it's like that too. It's a mutual experience. The point that I want to say is that this one's life is looking at Bermuda in crisis, and Bermuda is at a crossroads. It has to decide what it's going to do, how it's going to manage going forward, our people. And I say that indeed, and God Almighty said in the Quran, for example, and in the Bible and in the Torah, all the scriptures say the same thing, and that is God is one. God is one. So I know that the time people not. I can stop immediately, but if you permit me, I just want to read one scripture for me. But I am because we never heard anything from the Quran. So here, I won't read the outlook, but I'll read the English. Saying, O believers, we have believed in God Almighty, and what has been revealed to us, and what has been revealed to Abraham, and Ishmael, and Isaac, and Jacob, and the descendants, and what was given to Moses, and Jesus, and what was given to the prophets from the Lord. We make no distinction between any of them. We don't say that one is better than the other, and we are in submission to God Almighty. This is from the 2nd chapter in the Quran. And the reason why I wanted to share it with you, because many people, they have been lied to and told that the Quran is a book of hate, that the Muslims somehow they hate Christians or hate Jews or hate. This is all rubbish. And if you're going to prove me wrong, then just go and find it and read it for yourself. You don't have to buy it. Just digitally, you can really read it for yourself and find out what is the truth. That's what I want to say. But that's my invitation here, because it's important that we get to know each other. Yeah? Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Good evening, everyone. In 2010, as a consultant to Premier Brown, I would also go on to become a consultant to his successor, Premier Cox. But in 2010, it was right at a point when Bermuda was experiencing an origin of violence. And that would have been from, say, 2007 to like 2011, 12. Of course, we're notorious for having short memories. But what we saw in the last 4 or 5 weeks pales in comparison to what was happening. My guesstimate would have been, or is, during that period, you would have had, again, this is a guesstimate, 3.5 attempted murders per month, with maybe 1.5 being successful. Between 2007 and 2012, give or take a year of either. And so I would go on the news anytime that it was really horrific, and I would say the following: that if we don't deal with the underlying causation that's producing the most deadliest of adverse impacts in this society, the 5, 7, 9, 11-year-olds then would, in a decade, grow up and take their place in what we now still see. You had 2 young men that were murdered in the colonial capital of town a few weeks ago. Those who committed the murders were all around the same age. The young man who I believe is in charge of the murder of Miss Myers, similar, same age. And so, if you take those ages and put them in 2010, those were the 3, 5, 7, 9-year-olds I was talking about. Herbie Bassett's 8, 9, 10. Those were the young men I was talking about. So we're speaking about societal failure. That's what we're speaking about. Between 1997 and 2007, the Minchin Report, Professor Minchin from Columbia University, the most devastating finding that came out of that report, that between 1997 and 2007, half of all black students who entered S1 in Berkeley and more so with Cedar Ridge by 2007, a decade later, had disappeared. They didn't graduate. After that S2. You see? And so, when I hear people trying to dumb down my community, you had 3 op-eds this week. Let me tell you what they're pushing. False narrative. And these are 2 OBA politicians, and you heard it from the PLO. But no, it's all personal responsibility and accountability. That's what it's about. This is systemic. At the heart of it is socioeconomic marginalization. At the heart of it is a massive growth of income and wealth inequality in your community. It's not just happening here. It's happening in North America. It's happening over in Europe. It's happening in the Caribbean. Barbados is having the same problem. St. Kitts and Nevis is having forbid, and probably a third of us in here got roots down here. Income and wealth inequality is at the heart of this. Not what we're putting on here. Guess where it's being generated from in Bermuda? Anybody have a guess? A place called IB, International Business. But now it's the paradox. Am I saying that they haven't made any contributions to our economy? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you got to look at both sides of the ledger. That's where most of your income and wealth inequality is being generated from. We now have a financialized economy. And let me tell you what happens in the impacts you get in countries with high levels of income and wealth inequality. Poor educational. No, first of all, I say this. It has its greatest impact on those at the bottom of income distribution. So the low income, low and middle income households, And the adverse impacts, just as a short case, poor education outcomes, erosion of our middle class. Because if the income and wealth inequality, if it's rising, that means that short definition means there's more income and wealth going into fewer and fewer hands. Just like the erosion in the middle class, the growth of poverty, real and relative. This is what we don't have poverty. We are the most fastest, the prosperous black people in the face of the planet. Those days are gone. You have poverty in Bermuda. You get the growth of illicit economy around drugs. Those young guys that I told you that didn't graduate, they didn't say they had dropped out. Because the scholars would say, well, some of them have gotten in Bermuda, maybe gone home and get their GEDs. Some would end up as soldiers. No. Some would have had to be shipped out here to the UK. They're now 20 in the same age as these boys, 20, 25 years old. But let me tell you what happened. They were coming out into an economy, right? With lacking a high school. Some of them would have been subsequently gotten to high school. But even those who would have gotten their high school degrees, where were they going to work? You would say, oh, hospitality. Oh, really? Well, in hospitality, they have a business model predicated upon using low-cost, low-skilled foreign labor to drive down wages. Oh, yeah, well, they can take a job there. Right? Oh, yeah, but if they do with those wages, they got to stay home with mama for the next 25 years. Although, let's be honest, a lot of moms would love it. I didn't know that.
That's your father.
I never read. Let me just end this here. Let me just, I'm going to continue on, right?
Let Dr. Zena come up. Yes, sir. Welcome. Glad you're here.
So, what I'm trying to get across, the root of this is again the rise of income wealth inequality. And it's the intersection between socioeconomic status and race. Okay? Because all of these impacts, if you not noticed, I know this, I promise, are all ring-fenced around your black communities, from one end of the island to the other. All of these impacts I told you about, does that sound familiar? Huh? And the most deadliest impact is, again, it's capital crimes that we see that are going on here. The murders. That's the most deadliest of these impacts. So that's where the conversation needs to go. And just to echo my brother Jermaine, my cousin, we need a new gospel. We need a new gospel here. We need a new conventional wisdom. We can't just rely on God. You know, they went to Sunday school, and the parents, what do you think the parents? The parents are very responsible. All right, they're worthless parents these days. All this stuff is happening. We gotta have a serious conversation based around the data that stirs us in place. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Brother Wells. Let's give him a hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, one million and one talk and campaign. Some of them going to the chase as I see it. The reason for this meeting tonight is pretty skinny. Because we are really concerned about the end one that we of the country. And from my perspective, as a former Christian, I can perhaps talk and then to the next officer about please proceed. Let me say this to you. We spoke about peace. One of the reasons we are gathered in all is for poor facts and maybe also some direction as to how many people and they have children to be responsible for dealing with a present state of affairs, how they should deal with it, and basically bring some closure, some peace of mind to all of us that are affected. This gathering of our community, I think everything that has been said, there's a connection between where we are today in this present climate. So I think that we have said that enough is enough, and now we need to rein in our young people, I want to say monostrate. How do we do that? There's a level of uneasiness in this community. There's a level of mistrust toward a number of people, including our officials and police and that. But I think the purpose of this meeting is for us as a community to realize that whatever problems we have, we can solve if we put our heads together and realize that none of us has a monopoly on anything. But we must always remember who is in charge. We have a commander-in-chief is not the governor. Our commander-in-chief is God. As long as we stay connected to that, and we have collectively stray away from the spiritual connection that the world is we are today. I'm glad to see that when we started this meeting, we recognize who's in charge. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm not going to say too much more. I'm used to taking orders. We said 5 minutes. It's been about 3 minutes and 45 seconds. And others to go home. But I don't want to say that we have to sort of be more in tune with each other. Get our ears up from our screens. Let's start communicating with each other and our young people. How do we do that? That's a challenge. Thank you.
So good evening, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity, Reverend. I think I forgot to talk. Reverend Jay. But thank you for this opportunity. But before I start with this little script that I wrote, because I'm not that eloquent to remember everything that I need to just say, I do want to take note of who's in the room. Because there are sections of our community, and we all talk about community, that are not here. And I mean no offense to anyone in this room, but there are hardly any young people in this room. And there are hardly any white people in this room. And so when we talk about building community, we need to think about our outreach and switch from the norm. Right? I have agreed to be on this panel. I want to be on this panel, and I want to offer some things, but there are some things and some narratives that we continue that we need to shift in order to engage our young people. I recently did a session with 8 young Black men on restorative practice. And they said just that. They spoke about being disconnected. They spoke about how the older people look at them, treat them, that sort of thing. We need to change our approach with these young people. So now I'm just going to read what I have prepared, right? Hopefully I've got the time. But so when we talk about gang violence, we can't just focus on what we see. We have to talk about what's beneath it. And I think Brother Ralph here, he started with some of that. Because gang violence is not the root problem. It's a symptom, a reflection of systemic injustice that has shaped the lives of Black people and Bermudians, and for generations. Our young Black men are not inherently violent. They are disenfranchised. They have grown up in systems that from the very beginning limit their access to opportunity. Schools that don't affirm them, workplaces that don't hire them, and policies that over-police them. When you're constantly told you don't belong, you start looking for belonging anywhere you can find it. And sometimes that's what gangs offer. Not violence for its sake, but identity, status, community in a world that's denied all three. And then there's a deeper layer that we all don't talk about enough, and that's internalized racism. For too long, we've been conditioned to see whiteness as the norm, and again, I mean no offense, but truth is truth. What's smart, what's beautiful, what's successful. So many of our young Black men learn, often without realizing it, that to be accepted, they must emulate that whiteness. And all of us do it. We're conditioned, even unconsciously. So that's a form of violence too, the erasure of self. The truth is we haven't invested enough in identity development, as Edward spoke about, in helping our young men know who they are, where they come from, and why that matters. Because when we lose our sense of identity, we lose our sense of power. But we also have to acknowledge something a little deeper. The way oppression in Bermuda has shaped our families for generations. Many of our families have had to live in survival mode, where systems continue to work against you in education, employment, justice, and healthcare. Survival becomes the focus. There's little space left for healing, for thriving, or for breaking your cycles. And our current economy is slowly making it worse. We cannot expect to see an end to crime or violence when inequities remain this stark. The majority of our homeless, Black men. Our prisons, Black men. And too many Black men are without medical insurance, without even the most basic access to care. This is the truth. This isn't by accident. It's the direct result of systems that continue to fail our people. If we truly need to change the trajectory of our island, we must be intentional about supporting our Black men through education, employment, mental health services, and opportunities. And again, I mean no offense. We have a lot of support for young women and women's rights. A lot. But we don't do enough for our young men. We really, really don't. We have been empowering women for so long that we have oppressed our men. They're almost invisible. We need to shift. And I'm not saying don't do right by women. I'm not saying that. But we need to, there's a balance. We need to do more for our young men from very young. And one thing I just want to say, and everybody points out, I just want to say that even for me personally, like this is hitting home. Like you know now, you know the victims, and you know the perpetrators. I remember the young man that was in the paper yesterday who went out for this murder. I remember when he was born. I can still see the innocence in his face. I know his mom. This is hitting home, and we all need to recognize that these are our people, it's our community, and we're all human. And we need to do better. We haven't done a great job. We need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. The gospel, hallelujah, gospel.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to apologize for my tardiness. I had a family emergency that I was having to. And I'm grateful to be here. And I'm grateful to share and to hear what my fellow panelists have to say. I never shown you Stacey, I did not before. I was listening to her talk and I was like, this is segueing right into what I want to share. So thank you for that. I want to share two concepts with you just as a group now. And the first is making opportunities and the second is collective responsibility. And I also want to challenge us with my former panelists, as former speakers have already done so, but to challenge us as a people to rise to the occasion. So making opportunities is an organizational leadership concept. And it speaks of situations and occurrences that you did not anticipate. And so you find yourself in a situation where you don't know what to do next because you've never encountered this before. And what you do know is that things have shifted so fundamentally and so significantly that anything that you would have tried to address a similar situation in the past, you know is not going to work. And so these things used to be called big problems, but now they're called big opportunities. Because what they're encouraged to do as a leader is to stop, regroup, reflect, and think about where do we go from here? What do we need to do in order to face the situation that we're now facing, to deal with the situation we're now facing? And we as a community are in that same position. This forum was convened because we're seeing violence on a level we've never seen it before. And we know that the things that we used to do before are not going to address these problems. We know that we have to deal with problems differently, but I also want us to look at us as a people, piggybacking on what you just said, how we've looked at these situations, how we've addressed them, what we thought to be the answer. Because the reality is that there's no one answer. What we're faced with is a complex problem with many facets. I heard part of what Brother Robert said as I was walking in the door. It's many facets. There's a social aspect, there's an economic aspect, there's a political aspect, there's the failure of the education system, failure of the healthcare system. I've worked in social services my entire life, with the exception of the last 4 years. And I've often reflected, and I've said to my peers and to my colleagues, work colleagues as well as social peers, every system in this island that deals with young people is failing. Yeah. And every year it's getting worse. That cannot be a coincidence. It cannot. And so we as a people have to look at what is it that we are doing. This is really collective responsibility for our community. And the new gospel is actually not new. Because when you look at the gospels, Jesus was concerned about his community. And he called us to go out and act, not to sit in our buildings every Saturday or Sunday and wait for people to come in. We have a collective responsibility to go out and make a difference in our community. Not by having our Bibles, not by preaching to people, but going in and solving real problems. And when we become a solution to real problems, then people do our levels, our ability will be able to help. But we're doing things backwards. We're truly doing things backwards. And so I believe that this situation that we're facing now has shaken us as a people. But it's a good thing, because it's calling us back to who we were. Back to the days when we cared about our purpose. Back to the days when we saw a child wandering somewhere they weren't supposed to be, but we knew we're not people. What are you doing? Why are you here in town at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning and not in school? And you're sitting on a wall somewhere, you're not heading to an appointment or heading back to the bus stop, and you're just sitting on a lawn. We need to get back to a point where we care and we're willing to do something about the fact that we care. And so I challenge us to look at this situation. I get very annoyed, to be perfectly honest with you, when I hear people talking about young black men. Young black men are not a problem. They're not a problem, they're a symptom of a larger problem that we have allowed to proliferate to the point where we see what we see today. And so we have to look at and dismantle our ideals, our beliefs, our principles, and really consider, okay, what is really going on? When we see these young black men who are committing these offenses, don't ask what's wrong with them. Ask what do they need. And then ask, how am I able to help them get what they need? When I was researching in terms of what I would share, I found a story, gentleman, no, it was a true story. A gentleman, a black man who had lived in an urban area in the US, and he was talking to one of his white friends, and his friend was all excited. And he was saying, oh, my church is coming down, we're going to read to the children in the school. And he said, it's probably dead. And he looked at his friend and he said, you know, can I be really honest with you? That irritates me every time you do it. And I'm paraphrasing, but this is that irritates me every time you do it, because we know how to read. We don't need you to come down and read to our children. But you have access in realms that we don't. You have connections in society that we don't. So rather than coming on and reading to our children, which we can do for ourselves, get with your friends who are in politics, get with your friends who are in governmental leadership, and start talking to them about what you see when you come down to our communities. And start getting them to consider solutions that they can implement, because they have a power to do it, but you have the connections there, and you're in the same rooms. And so I don't want us to start thinking of that out. We may not be able to connect with the premier, but we do somebody can. And I'll be honest, the current government that we have is actually very responsive. When I remember when he did the first Friends speech back in March, the new Friends speech, and he said, oh, I mean, I want to connect with people. I said, yeah, put your money in one field. I sent him a friend request on LinkedIn. I went right back to the office and did it. And he accepted it that same day. And I said, okay, you know, he's really interested in connecting. He wants to know. Reach out to his office and talk to him about the concerns that you have for us as a community. Pull the coattails, of your past and say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do as a church to change our community? Because the churches used to be hubs. Will your community even notice if our church is packed up and left? Do they know that we're there? Is the music that they hear on Sunday morning and the congested parking the only reason they know we're present? Or are we making a difference in the areas that God has put us in? That's the level of thinking that I want us to get to. And I want us to start having honest conversations, because a lot of the things that you raised, Stacey, we need to start having honest conversations about how we got here, historically, and more current events. And we need to come into these conversations, not pointing fingers and blaming, but just stating facts. And then we hear things that hurt us because we see other failures, don't get offended. Because the intent is not to blame. Blame doesn't do anything. But what we need to do is state the facts and look at it and say, okay, what are we going to do differently? Because as long as we keep doing the things that we've been doing all this time, we're going to keep getting circumstances that are worse and worse and worse. I saw a story, let's clear up real quick. I saw a story online today where this 5-year-old girl was from some desert place, not too far from London, but like off the beaten path. She had literature marks on her neck, where somebody has tried to strangle her. Her face, the front part of her hair was ripped out of the scalp. She had been sexually violated. She had been beaten. Her face was very recognizable. When they found the perpetrators, they were 10, 9, and 8. That's not, we used to have a saying when the U.S. used to commit attacks. Yeah. There's truth to that. And if we keep on this trajectory that we're on now, those are the types of things we're going to start seeing. And so we have to do different. We have to. Thank you.
What we'd like to do now is to shift a bit. I'm going to ask a few questions before we open the floor for you to ask questions as well. So allow me just to say a little bit about the journey I've been walking to get to the questions that I want to ask you panelists. I am a gospel preacher more than 25 years in the ministry. Most of my adult life has been in the United States, Atlanta, Georgia in particular, for a short time in Swanee, Tennessee, just outside of Chattanooga. Married, divorced, 2 children. Married again, no more children. Prior to relocating to the island, I was bivocational. I was a pastor and a funeral director and a embalmer. Prior to that, I was a police officer. All of that before I was 40. I've seen some stuff, not just overseas, but I've seen some things here. And I have to say that it is true that when we hear of the United States catching a cold or sneezing, however you want to reverse that, we end up with the same kind of stuff soon thereafter. It's not long. So here we are tonight, dealing with another, what we call senseless murder, and what we're going to do as a community. We've been here before. How many of you have come before to conversations like these after a tragedy? Is anyone? Yeah. And we're seeing the violence intensify. I heard Brother Rolf earlier, because he was saying that back in 2009, 2010, there were shootings and killings going on. I was serving as a morgue tech at the time at our hospital. I know intimately, I saw many people come to identify their loved ones. I too had to deal with arranging for forensic teams to come to the island to do autopsies. I too was pulling rounds out of human flesh that was non-responsive, taking probes and finding out the trajectory of those rounds in human flesh, taking specimens from major organs so that they can be viewed under microscope to find out an actual cause of death. That's the physical sense of it. But we gotta go deeper. How do we go deeper? How do we go deeper beyond this physical and this conversation that we're having that's reflective of what we are seeing that is symptomatic? Where do we start when we talk about going deeper? What does that look like? What do we have to do?
I think that's the question.
How do we go deeper?
I think that's the question that you are asking. Now, let me say this then. As an investigator, I can tell you that what I'm led to believe, or the evidence that I've heard so far, is that we're really talking about, in this country, we're talking about leadership, management, accountability, and transparency. That's what they're talking about indirectly. We need to speak directly to them if we want to make some changes in this country, quite frankly. This is the type of conversation we need to have, and I would say that as a result of the art mentioned, and some things that were not done, that should have been done, as an example, we have too many people in our position and that think they know more than science. They were engaged a consultant or a scientist, and then they don't respond as to really think they should. They now tell the scientists how to do the work. As an example, Dr. Lovell needs to more. Those type of things go on and on. We also spoke about some things that were myself, ministry report, etc. We hire consultants to give us some direction. If it doesn't fall in with what our leaders want to do, that consultant is pushed aside. That's what we have to deal with. I think, quite frankly, this country needs a shakeout from top to bottom. That's what we need to do.
Will someone else speak to the question? What do we need to do to go deeper? What does that look like?
Well, sorry. To go deeper, I'm going to say it again. We need to embrace the new gospel, the new conventionalism, because the old gospel, when I'm talking about gospel, I'm talking about what's in the Bible. The old conventionalism has failed us. Certainly, we are in a crisis, especially when there's black community, which means that we're in a crisis. Now, let me just say this here, right? This usually stops them dead in their tracks, as Stacey knows. You live in a multiracial society. 31% of your residents here are white. And then you have others, right? Why haven't you seen the same impact in Bermuda's white community? Now, let me tell you why you haven't seen it. Because when you're in a country with such a high level of income inequality, it has its greatest impact upon those who are at the bottom in terms of income distribution. They look like you. Whites, on average, have higher levels of income and multi-generational wealth, on average, to more fully insulate them from the worst impact. What does a black Bermuda get about that? And white Bermuda. So let me tell you, if you've had income and wealth equality this high, okay, there's no other question. This is ground zero of what we have to address. When you have to decide, there's only one antidote to that. It's called redistributive policies in terms of the government level. So if you have 6,000 to 7,000 Bermudians, I want people to give a hand to Dr. Ida right there, who really opened our eyes to the connection between socioeconomic status and race in terms of healthcare. Right there. That the former chief medical officer put my hand. 6,000 to 7,000 black Bermudians with health insurance, 2,000 whites, roughly speaking. 5,000 to 6,000 of your people have left Bermuda. They're living in the UK. Not to mention some who are to the west of us, in North America and the Caribbean. Bermuda's economy is no longer sustainable for at least half the population. That's the problem. So let's stay focused on that laser light. Why do you think I advocated for a living wage? No one was going to achieve reparations. Because those boys I told who didn't graduate, and those who did and got at least a high school degree, in an economy, because of the growth of IB, there's less diversification in your economy. So where are they going to work, I said, in hospitality. But the government had allowed hospitality to take the tools that should be going to the workers and put it in the hands of the employers who use it in the calculation of basic pay. That's illegal in the UK. That's illegal in New York State. DoorDash has got $17 million for doing the same thing. But yet, that gratuity system that your mothers, your fathers, and grandfathers fought under the banner of the rest of the Bermuda Industrial Union to ensure I don't know citizens arrest. That's no more Bermuda. Okay? It's all about healthcare, right to healthcare again. How could you be in a Bermuda where your GDP per capita is $138,935 and you have 67,000 people without health insurance? What does that tell you about the state of your economy? That you can have Barbados, 29,000 GDP per capita. Guess what? Every citizen has free health care. Canada, we have a Bermuda right now that all of you know in this room are black Bermudian men, who older than myself is Bermudian. Those ladies. Told his sister, lives in Canada, told his sister, sis, if I could stay on Bermuda, I would do it. Canada's got free health care. Their GDP per capita is probably about 60,000, 70,000, 80. But you don't have it. So let me give you this about what the new system of Bermuda is. I got mine. I don't know about you. That's going to provide you too. That's the ethos they want you to do. Okay? And we mimic. It's just to say it. We mimic things. Let me tell you this. This is heartbreaking. First, this is heartbreaking. You have a black community. Probably comes from a modest, low-income household. But he's made now. He's an underwriter in IB. He was in the wrong to stand about 15 weeks ago saying he's opposed to universal health care. Where's he getting that from? His right-wing, whatever, who his professionals in the IB. You know, with their right-wing thinking, right? But wait now. Guess what, everybody? My cousin who also worked at IB is an underwriter. He's now living in Florida. He worked here for Semco. I think they're a Japanese maritime store. Right? When I told him about this story, he told me, he said, no. Everybody in IB gets free health care. He's saying as opposed to you getting free health care. But he's got it. You see the iniquities that are so embedded. Anyway, I don't want to go too far. Let me just, and let me tell you, nobody can go these two
I
branches.
don't understand what you're saying,
Yes.
but I want to understand now. I love your question, but I need to understand what you're saying.
I know, man. It's just a sense. It's a complex issue, right? And I understand what you're saying. We gotta raise the bar because there's been a dumbing down in our community. And I'm not being one thing as a Jew, but this is an island-wide problem. Because lacking critical thinking skills, that's another big deficit now. I just want to say this here. When it comes to the high times of income and equality, the only antidote is to put in place redistributive public policies to redress that imbalance. And that's where we're at now.
So if we were somewhere else, they would call that a socialist approach. Well, again, if we were somewhere else, that's what they would call that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when we're talking about evening the playing field, so that those who are on the lower end of the economic ladder have a fair chance. Again, we cloak it with a lot of terminology, but what we're talking about is a redistribution of accessible wealth, which can come from a fair shot at better health care. Because how many of you are paying outrageous co-pays, monthly premiums? Outrageous, right? Yeah.
The UK has free health care.
Yeah. No, I'm simply saying that we are agreeing with the principle that you've stated. As it relates to our young black men, especially around vocations and jobs, there are many who are not going overseas seeking degrees. There are many who are remaining on the island exploring trades, who are now actually competing with the foreign worker. I learned just a couple months ago how many Cubans were brought from the island of Cuba into Bermuda working at one of our hotel sites. And my wife, who also happens to be Cuban, thought that was interesting. we went and had a conversation with those who were at the work site. We're still being called that. It's as if we are ignoring the skill sets that are resident on the island. Sure, they'll take a small percentage of Bermudians, but the lion's share of the people on this work site are foreign workers, people who will very likely be accepting very low wages, being worked from can C to can C. How do we address that policy as it relates to how work, particularly trades, is being shared? Not necessarily you, Brother Roth, but any one of us can answer that. How do we address that? Because that's a government.
Okay, so here's a policy, right? You had a great outlet from Executive at Home. He says amongst the 1,100 homeless people, 92% of black males, you'll find people who were in the trades, but not alone. The same thing I said about using low-cost, low-skilled foreign labor. It was most pronounced in hospitality, but now the same business model has migrated to construction, landscaping, etc. That is the business model now. And who's going to be left out? Well, we all know who they are.
How do we address that from a policy perspective? That's the question. Perhaps we should share the mic. So
that's why I think it's a living wage.
That's a reasonable policy.
Let these guys answer first. We're going to come. We have a period of time for the floor to respond. Yes.
Yeah, good evening again. I think we touched on 3 or 4 different points. I want to go back to the health point. That was a question. And the question is healthcare. Is it a right or is it a privilege? That's the question. If you can't answer that question, then you come to the honest truth, you know. The problem is all business, isn't it? It's all about the money. If anything is about the money, then yeah, it's capitalism. Let's just sock it to them. Makes it. There are so many new healthcare places on the island in the last 2 or 3 years, right? And many of them, and because they're driven by maybe it is the good Samaritan spirit, but I don't think so. It's all about that money. It's profit-based, and you have to start thinking differently. If you care about your people, you have to take care of them. You have to make sure that everyone has health care. It's just obvious. Given the poorest country, you don't throw somebody on the bus because he has no money. You're going to feed him. Yeah? That's a basic concept of every physician. I think, I'm not a physician, but I know a few. And I'm saying that that's the point. So I'm saying that you can call it socialism, you can call it whatever you want. But the fact of the matter is, if we want to rearrange the society, we talk about change, right? You come to change it, then you have to change it. That's my point. It wasn't God-given or God ordained that we have to have this capitalist model for the healthcare system. It's not like that. You can change it. You look at human beings, so we change it. That's it. You have several examples. The Canadian model, you said, the UK model, they're Albanian. You have Albanian, but I think most of Europe is like that. So you go everywhere, you get sick. They take care of it. It's done.
We're actually talking about holding legislators accountable.
Yeah, well, get rid of it. I'm saying. Simple, man. That's the word it was, yeah? Get rid of it. That's it. I'm saying it worked for us, right? Simple as that. We got to start. We're not children, we're adults, yeah? So I'm saying to you, that's what it's supposed to be about. That's it. What I'm speaking to.
I don't know. I think I wanted to speak closer to when you asked the question. I think you said
As relates to the trades and
no. Deeper, go deeper.
Go deeper. How do we go deeper?
How do we go deeper? And my thought is this: is that it's about narrative. It's about those stories that we perpetuate, that we continue to say and believe, and that we are not thinking deeper. So, for instance, an example of what we're doing to our young people is in the media. When we talk about public schools, it's generally negative. Who's reading that? How are our young children supposed to feel empowered and excited about going to school? Not everybody can go to private school, and not necessarily the private schools are bad. I've worked in both. Right? The narrative. We keep saying negative about our teachers, negative about our students, instead of talking about what is actually happening that's positive to empower them. They have to feel less than when you compare between private and public. Well, I don't go private school, so I'm not getting as good as the education. But we as parents are responsible. We need to switch some of the narrative. And that's just one example. Right? We need to start thinking more community-orientated, where we used to be. There's a question that we ask when we do restorative practice. And it is, what has changed over the last 30 years as far as education, as far as community, and there's a lot of common theme. Not that everything we did was right, because if it was, we wouldn't have the problem we have now. But if we go back to being more community-oriented and stop being so selfish. I used to be able to go to the store and borrow ketchup, salt, whatever. I used to say, I gotta run to the shop. My kids, can you watch out for my kids? We need to get back to community, healthy community, and we need to ask ourselves the questions of what does healthy community mean? Like really think critically, because I don't think we think deep enough. We need to shift the narrative and our way of thinking. Somebody was saying, I was at dinner the other night and somebody said, oh, I'm going to send my child to private school because the class sizes are smaller. Guess what? That's not true. That's not true. And then in the same conversation, it was like, well, we need to bring corporal punishment back, or we need to do, we need to be able to spank our kids. But you want to send your child to private school who don't have that code of conduct. Like, you really need to think. We don't have it on our code of conduct now. I'm not a proponent of spanking or all of that. I'm not. But we say one thing, but we don't think deep enough about what we're actually saying. So that's what I think we need to do. We need to spend time having those deep conversations and stop letting fear keep you out of those conversations. Because the only time true transformation happens is through discomfort. And that's what's happening to our society and community right now. There is more awareness because we're all afraid now because this violence is getting out of hand. So it's going to move us into action. You'll have more meetings like this. But there are other groups that are definitely going to take some action. And that's the positive part that's coming out as a result of that.
I know the mics are very high. I just turned it down, so yeah. Just so that we could all be heard and understood. we want to be very, very conscientious about our volume. At this point, we want to transition from the questions that were coming from myself, the moderator, to yes, we're going to transition, I'm just going to say after you, we're going to transition to questions or even comments from the floor, okay, following Dr. Z.
Thank you. I just want to go back to your statement about the trades and what we're seeing in our forums coming in. And it ties into what Stacy and Bob was saying about critical thinking. There has been a practice, I'll say, in Bermuda across the governments. UDP did it, PLP is doing it, good. We are going to cater to wealthy foreigners who want to come in their businesses. We're going to give them all sorts of concessions. And we're going to hope that they give Bermudians jobs. And so when that happens, we see things like the works that you mentioned. Really, and even in R&D, we have Bermudians working in R&D. But how are Bermudians represented at the upper levels? On that website, why is it that we have, I don't know, I wish we were on Wisconsin amongst Black men. We have high level of unemployment amongst Black men, but we're bringing in Cuban laborers. None whatsoever. But we keep looking for these same practices.
Excuse me, they hired 150 Bermudians up at the Princess Way too, with more machines. But guess what they're making per hour? $22 an hour.
Who's making $22 an hour? The Bermudians or the Cubans?
No, that's what they're all doing. $22 an hour. How can they live on that?
Yeah. But guess what? That's $6 more than minimum wage. Or $5.20. Which is insane. And I say that not to say that not at all. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the $22 are always good. What I'm saying is there are Bermudians who make far less than that, which is absolutely insane. And we expect them to be able to survive and have families and thrive. But we as a people don't hold our government accountable. We go to the pillows, maybe because if we're real men, we're going to look for somebody else to stay. But in between the elections, we don't hold our elected officials accountable. When I say government, I'm not just looking at the party who's in the ruling power, but the opposition as well. We just let people do whatever, and they want to be. You know, the booty Brooksville years and years ago, I can't stand you so much. Put that on there first. Boogie is love to free. And when I first heard this, I was very irritated. But I also always often say, Boogie is not like to free, Boogie is like to talk. We gather amongst ourselves and our family groups and our friend groups, and we talk about all this stuff. And some of these things we talk about, we come up with some really great ideas, but the order goes to stay there in your pockets. None of it going to be willing to act. Yes. And go back to what Stacey said about the education system. Two things. Number one, the private schools they have options.
Yeah.
They have choices. And so, you know, when children misbehave or when children aren't doing well, you're not going to bring on my side on paper. So we invite you to enroll your child somewhere else. And so they continue to look like they're doing phenomenally. Because when people don't do phenomenally, they think, well, that's one thing. But the other thing is, and this goes back to having honest conversations, we have to realize that our public school system is in trouble. I remember years ago, I was at the W school for PTA, actually it was a orientation for the income and M1 students. And there was a principal there from one of the six senior schools, the private senior schools. And they were talking about what the children need when they graduate from high school. They thought it was great. So they appeared on an ability to M1 with the mindset of this is what I need when I get to S4 in order to graduate from S4. But what she said disturbed me to no end. She said, oh, our children in the public school system, they need to get 3 GCSEs. And I was like, really? Like S4? In the private school system? Look at GCSEs and S2. I asked them, I still want to be on GCSE, and they've gotten so many of them. And how much children are they going to compete with those children for scholarships? Who do you think that is? I went to work ethic, I work ethic is free. If you graduated, you had no less than 10 GCSEs. And what's separating 3? Are you kidding me? And then for the people, it's not equal. It's not. Our public school system is in trouble. One of my good, very good friends, her children are my grandchildren. She was determined, she was determined to put her in public school. And then something happened, and she had to remove it. When my daughter started, my friend was saying to me that my daughter, when she was in P6, had covered the entire M2 curriculum. So our children in public school were 2 years behind. I have another friend who's a teacher, and then one weekend she had to go into the classroom. We were hanging out together. I was like, and so I was grading papers. And she teaches learning support as far as mainstream students. So I was going to do paper, and I was like, some classes, and she told me, she said, what did I do that? I said, because this is, and it was one of the groups, so this is an M2, right? So she said, yeah, I said, so yeah. Okay, so this is like, would be our shared high school. She said, yes. I said, why did you do what we did at P6?
Excuse me, I don't want to be rude, but you're burning up time socializing. We're trying to get to a point. I mean, I gotta be disrespectful.
My brother, we're going to be here from the floor in a matter of minutes.
I'm making a point that our education system is in trouble. And this is one of the honest conversations we need to have. Not pointing fingers, not being blamed, not being offended. Just stating facts and figuring it out.
Thank you, my brother. And I want to acknowledge Senator Joe Dillis-Wright, President of the Senate, and Brother Dion, formerly a candidate among us tonight. Glad to have you both. Anyone else like this? All right, my brother.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Dwight Leonard. I have been to every single public meeting in the last 4 years, and I have been trying to open up the eyes and educate my people on the problem and also the solution. First of all, I'm going to commend the panel, especially Stacy, because I've known her for a very long time, and what she said in that first address was spot on. She did not miss a beat. I do disagree a little bit with Ralph Commission, and it's based on this race thing, okay? And I say that because I also am a sacrificial lamb to this system most of my life. And what that done was, it forced me to study law, study psychology, and all these other subjects that are basically tools for us to survive. And I was encouraged by Julie Hall, one of the greatest attorneys on this earth, not just in Bermuda. What you guys don't know is that Julie was highly respected all around the world. I'm saying all that to say this, that the problem is exactly what a lot of the panelists are saying, in that not only do we have to hold the people in positions of power and authority in this country accountable, but we need to grow up, accept responsibility and accountability, and move, change. And I'm saying that because the Westminster system was broken from its inception. It has never worked. It doesn't work. It only works for the just us people. It might be spelled justice, but it's pronounced just us. Okay? So I'm saying that to say this, that in all my studies, okay, I've studied now for the last 33 years, studying law. And I've studied maritime law, admiralty law, statutory law, contract law. I studied common law, natural law, international law, trust law, Magna Carta. The only one I haven't studied is constitutional law. And in all these studies that I've done in law, I found that maritime law, admiralty law, statutory law, and contract law are laws that are written by man. Man wrote these laws with an intent. Okay? Man has always cut off his nose to spite his face. Okay? Through his arrogance and his ignorance. And he wrote these laws so that he can get away with his sins and his crimes. Okay? And in finding this information out, what it's exposed to me is that I heard a lot of talk about God, and I believe in God. God is the promoter, I guess, and the supporter of all the other laws: common law, natural law, international law, trust law, and Magna Carta, and Constitution. I'm saying that because we, as a society, and I spoke last week at the town hall meeting, okay, and it's amazing that every time I've spoken, I've also studied The Art of War, which is a 3,000-year-old book written for times like now as well, because that's something that they also govern society over. The Art of War says that the way to defeat your enemy is to have your enemy defeat himself. So that's what they do to society, okay? And I'm going back to these panelists and their opinion about the education system, the economic system, the medical system, and the list goes on and on. All these things are the result of what we have today, okay? We have people in positions of power and authority, including your judges, okay? And I know because I've studied the law, that are breaking the law whilst pretending to be upholding the law, okay? How do you expect these young men who are victims of this learned behavior to live and act based on what they see, what they've experienced in their journey? The other thing is, and this is no disrespect to anybody here, gang violence ended about 5 or 8 years ago. Many of you don't know that. You're out of touch, and that's only because mainstream media and everything else perpetuates what is their narrative, what they want to be their narrative. This is not gang violence, what you see as far as these deaths are concerned. All these murders are personal people. They're all personal. Gang violence ended a long time ago. And I have a very close relationship with a lot of our young black men, just like Stacy said. Okay? They all look up to me. They all have the utmost of love and respect for me, because I told you I've been a sacrificial lamb to this corporation. And that's another one of the things that is a problem. Okay? We are governed by what they call a government. That's not the facts. They are a corporation. That in itself is an act of fraud, because you are posing as a government, but you are really a corporation. Hence, again, that's the reason why we have the end results that we have in society. Okay? So these young men are displaced. They feel like they don't have a future, they don't have a place in life. So what else, to do other than to try to gain some type of what they call stripes. Okay? That's their way of, I guess, feeling fulfilled. Okay? But all of that comes from, again, learned behavior. So I'm saying all to say to people, I brought up some law with me tonight. I'm not going to take up too much time sharing the laws with you guys, but I can assure you that last week at the meeting, I put the entire country on notice. Okay? I brought with me the no trespass notice. I brought with me the notice of liability. And last week, I put the entire corporation on notice to cease and desist. These are very, very powerful notices. Okay? And I'm saying that to say this, that If you don't know, you can't see what's happening to the rest of the world, it would explain why we are struggling to see what is going on right here in Bermuda. The rest of the world, people, is moving away from the colonization of the Westminster system back to their freedom and sovereignty. Okay? And in doing that, you will change the whole structure of how we live and how we are governed. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I'm not going to go too deep into any more of the law. But you guys really need to take some time out and learn a little bit more. And I'm available. I have people on a daily basis that want to speak with me and contact me and find out where we're going. I can honestly tell you that even the COVID situation that occurred in 2020 was all premeditated, people. I have the act of COVID-19, and they took 2 years before they gave it to me. I had to apply to the Supreme Court to get it, and they took it down off the website. The act of COVID-19 was passed in 2017 while you were being distracted with the America's problems. That's premeditated. How do you pass an act prior to this landing on the world stage? Again, that's one example of why we are in the situation and the circumstances that we are in today as a society.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Does anyone, Brother Dion, and my brother first, and then Brother Dion, Brother Matt is following us.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
You know, I've been to a few of these meetings.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I leave here worse than I came. It's unfortunate, only because we have had the Hopkins report, we've had the Pitt report, we've had Ralph Minsk report, and now we have CARICOM as a report. And the information that they give us is recommendations. There's no implementation from any of them, although they've been around for so many years. But yet, we find ourselves with this situation. I'm not here to say that there is a thing, because there is. But what we have to have is a will to make change. And as a people, it's about we. It isn't about one person saying, well, this is my opinion about this, and this is my opinion about this, and we should do this, and we should do that. It's about we standing up for what's right. Right now, we have a situation where it's good against evil. Do you know what that means? Yeah. It's a spiritual war that we're facing. Yeah. And if we're not going to pick up as a spiritual war that we're facing, we are never going to be able to address this. So, my respect to you, my number is okay? But if we don't address this on a spiritual level, guess what? It's going to get worse. Of course. That's my 2 cents. Of course. No, that would be
Father Cedric, you'll follow this gentleman in the back there. Brother Dion, just over that side, so you are. On the black shirt, on the back end. Over that side. Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. I didn't come here to really speak, but it's just important that we get a chance to listen to what everyone has to say. And today, I could definitely say by listening to everyone, I know everyone is concerned about our country, our community, and our people. And a lot of times, as it's been stated up front, there's no one solution. And when I look, I know that individuals, we have to look at the values of oneself. Even as little kids, it's personal responsibility that I believe it's lacking. And when we talk about parenting, all of that goes hand in hand. And as we move forward, you can see how the evolution has changed. We know that God's out, because we don't practice that in schools anymore and stuff like that. So a lot of different things have changed that has eroded our society. Our grandparents, some of them have passed away, moved away, emigrated. So when you have a lot of the distancing of those close community ties, a lot of this is coming in play. Now, I do know that, it would be great if we can build a greater community and stuff like that. I do know that the sensitivity of internet communication, when you talk about iPhones and tattoos and stuff like that, how everybody may view themselves and look at this BMW or this car, this is what I want, then again, I just paint that picture that, the values is God's in or God's out. And when you look at a lot of these different things, you end up saying to ourselves, like, what direction are we going in? And I do know that, when we talk about Bermuda, we have a strategic plan for everyone. Is it for everyone? And to me, that's what we consider a strategic plan, something that ties everyone in, not just singly, but everyone. So this is my few cents. I don't want to take up too much time, so thank you.
Thank you, Brother David. Mr. Andrews, right here, and then Father Cedric.
I don't think I need a mic.
No, we need to hear you on the camera.
Yeah, this is interesting. Nice evening. The only problem I have is that I got old. And just the other day I was about maybe 14. Now I'm almost 84. I'm just saying that to say that when we were coming along, Bermuda made sense. Now Bermuda don't make sense. If you can't be loyal to a place, a country that doesn't make sense, there's a stupidness now. We were the sharpest place on the planet. Our grannies and our grandfathers, our children, sharp. The people who built this home. Do you see where you are? Do you see how beautiful this home is? We built this because we know what we're doing. And then after we get to a place where we know what we're doing, you got your own black politicians put you down. I have never been treated like trash like I'm treated now. I worked all my life with boys, young boys, and boys just need to know that somebody loves them. I have some who is sharp, or grandchildren are sharp, and yet there are bones for politicians. You won't think I will. I scared of the subjects. And I'll tell you right now, in here, right now, most of you are scared of those politicians. I'm telling you. And I wonder if there's a course that you can take to frighten the people of a country. But Bermudians are scared. Right now, I'm trying to just get my understanding. I'm a mechanic. Lotus Brown was the person who didn't like the Bermudian male. I'm a Bermudian male, okay? I do things a certain way. I walk a certain way. I know who I am. I know who my parents are. I walk like a man. And a lot of you women, I'm going to tell you this right now. They've been holding your hand, kissing you and treating you real sporty. But you felt really up there. She said it earlier. What do we get in return for building all of this, working nights and all that type of thing? 3, 4 jobs. This is what Bermuda is. Now, if you don't like Bermuda, I wish you would just get out. Go, let's start off with 5 people in Bermuda. And go somewhere, all you who hate Bermuda. I love Bermuda. I love its people. And that's another thing. This is Devonshire, whether you like it or not. Devonshire is a special parish. All the people in Devonshire are a special type. And if you're a being or somebody like that, and you live in Devonshire, you better know what that means. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, sir. And if you go to Hamilton Parish, which is my parish, and you don't know your place, we'll put you in your place. Okay? And the Lord said to me one day, He said, well, go to the churches. That's where the problem is. The church people are not Christians. You hear me? They don't like the Lord. Fact. When you are a Christian, you're supposed to do the right thing. Do you know the difference between right and wrong? Do you know the 10 Commandments? Don't take your mate's wife. Okay. If you take a man's wife, I hit you. Right? That's the way men are. And there's a difference between men and women. Okay? Now, our women are downtown with the 8-inch heels and the big backsides all over the place. When I went to Barclay, I actually thought, yeah, all right. This is so. When I went to Barclay, I thought that the children that went there were going to come out and go into business. Because business is the important thing. When you're in business, you make money, and you're able to take care of your country. But our business people are being flooded by these black politicians. You want to talk about white people? Yeah, please. Right? I know what white people did. What they did was awful. But we were overcoming that. These black things have just figured out how to get paid for what you do, you and your expertise, you and your fine selves. They've figured out how to get paid for this. And down at TCD, I'm just trying to get my truck passed. They won't pass my truck. I'm the most qualified mechanic in Bermuda. Right? And it's a light on in the dash of my truck. But these people feel comfortable enough to mistreat me. My truck's been on the road for 5 months as they victimize me. And if you try to victimize me, I feel sorry for you because you must be crazy. Because my elevator don't go all the way to the top. And what I like about Bermudians, particularly the kind of Bermudians that I, particularly men, stand up and don't be scared of these people. Okay? So I just want to, I need to talk really sometime where I'm the speaker. I'm sick of those places where all these people are the speaker and they're not going to talk about Bermuda issues. That lady there in that ship, she got a brain. She has a brain. But she's got, and you have to say where it is. I've been off the road for 5 months, honestly. And you treat Landis Ingham like that? You must be crazy. Could I put on TCD? I said, I got you guys these jobs. The TCD before this TCD. I got them these jobs. Told these guys over there now are fathers. That's how old I am. And I got them those jobs. And I set up on the board of TCD. And you would mistreat me by something wrong you. What I would do to you. Oh my Lord. And I just needed to
I know. Brother Father Cedric.
I needed to say thank you.
So good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
I prefer to stand here to not let you look at the back and the curve yourself, but be comfortable when you want to see the speaker. So, I love Bermuda. It's a very interesting and delightful. I lived in 10 different places outside my country. I lived, for example, in Switzerland, 3 years. In Austria, 3 years. In Germany, 2.5 years. In Ethiopia, in Iraq. I lived in different places. North America, Canada, America. 1 year, 2 or 3 different. The best country for me is Bermuda. For example, in Germany, Austria, freezing in winter, snow. And also in Iraq, very hot. But here in Bermuda, don't need on such things. So when you get a storm, it's some wind and it disappears. But the storm in my country is sandstorm. You cannot breathe. You breathe sand.
Now, the Reverend said at the beginning, you are here not to diagnose because we know the problem. But we need to know the etymology or the reason, the causes of the problem, and how to solve it. So I hope that we can start to take practical steps. People talked about God and about Jesus and about the church to go and start to take action. I focus on two things. Peace. When Jesus was born, in the first day, the angels said, "Glory to God in the highest, peace on earth, and goodwill toward men." From the first day till his last day, he said, "My peace I live with you. My peace I give to you. Unlike the world, I give you my peace." And even in our church, when we dismiss the people in the community, we say, "Go in peace, the peace of the Lord be with you all, and we say also, O King of peace, grant us your peace. Establish for us your peace." This is what we say usually. So Jesus, is the King of peace. Never used violence. Never. Even when his disciples tried to use the sword to stop him. And they said, "Love your enemy." So the first thing is peace for everyone. How can we get peace? To follow the footsteps of Jesus Christ. Forgiveness, love, and also humility, and accepting one another, and the unity between man and woman. This is the other point I want to focus on. Those children who are aggressive, who are those children? So when we talk about our children at school and how can we help them, who are those children? So when we talk about history or identity, who are those children? Do they have father and mother? If the child has no father, how can the child know the ancestors and the history? What is that? Sorry to go deeper. Because women, especially young women, made themselves very cheap. They allowed themselves to live with a man without legal marriage. They lose all their rights. After a short period and getting children, the man leaves the woman. Broken relation. Repeated another time. Broken relation. And as a result, children grow up in a broken family or without a family. What do we expect from those children in the future? Shall be healthy characters or broken people? Shall be good character, good education, and good prosperity, or have no hope and no future, and they fall in despair, and they resort to alcohol or drugs or join gangs? Who are those children? We need to go back and start to have a real family. Man and woman to be married according to the legal constitution of the country and also according to the church. For matrimony is a sacrament in our church. It's a relation between man and woman all the life. Not to be, no divorce. No divorce in our church. But cohesion, family stability, and the unity, love, and the peace for all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Thank you. Yes, Sister Nicole, good evening. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, panel. I've heard a lot of good stuff today, but like most, I really heard some very important stuff. I've been to a lot of forums, but I just want to give you a little perspective of a young mind thinking. I don't see too many young people in her like I was saying. For me, I had no idea about the systemic, the oppression. I grew up as a drug addict. Yes, I'm old enough, I should have learned about it, but I didn't. Because my choices in life kept me uneducated to what was going on in my own country. So I was riddled with drugs for many of years. So I didn't know about what society, what the government, none of this was doing to me. I had no idea. So if I didn't, so many people on my level didn't either. So we don't know because we knew nothing. We didn't know this. We didn't understand exactly what was going on in our lives. We didn't understand how we were being used, abused, raped, whatever you want to call it. I just didn't know. I didn't understand it until, and it was only until I found out who I am and whose I am that I had a little bit more clarity. And that was when I found God and accepted God. That's my Lord and Savior. Other than that, I was of the world. I didn't know any better. I raised my children the best I could, but I didn't teach them this because I didn't know it. So they didn't have the history. These schools weren't teaching it, and neither was I. I didn't get taught it, so it was passed on a lost generation, and then the next lost generation. So we are lost. My thing here today is how do we reach those that are just like me? How do we reach them? How do we reach these young men to help them to understand who they are, and whose they are? I heard a lot of this going on. I heard all the problems. I heard it in every single forum I go to, but I don't see any action afterwards. I am going back home, waking up the next day to the same situation. Nothing changes. We're not doing anything. We sit up and we talk about it and we talk about it, and then another murder happens and then who is affected? All those that have been affected for years. Once again, another woman or man is there. So we have these conversations, but nothing happens. I come to them all the time, and I just need to stop burying young men and women. I've been affected on every level, and I am the first to say I dropped the ball on many occasions. But I need something different. I need to see action. I don't see that. I don't see any action. I come, I listen, and everybody has all the right things to say. Everybody is speaking on what they know. But I'm probably one of the youngest here. I want to think so anyway. I want to think so, but if I'm having a hard time understanding what you all are saying, there's so many of them out there, and how do we reach them? What can we do to let these young men know that they are worth it? How can we raise them up? But something, we can't just keep talking about it. Something has to be done. And you not have all the answers, but no one is moving.
I just wanted to acknowledge you on that. This will be our last response to.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So the solution is been mentioned by everybody in this place. Basically, young man looking for an identity and a place that they fit to serve purpose in the life. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room has, at one point in their life, asked herself, if it takes millions of sperms to get to one egg to create a human being, what was my purpose? How come I made in that big race. So that's what everybody is looking for. So why young men and young ladies are aggravated in this country today and being reactive is because they can't find their place and their purpose.
Yep.
I look at every one of you. You probably all have a career, an occupation, a profession, a passion that you pursue. And if you was all multi-billionaires, you would do it for free because you love it so much. But young people out there don't have that. They don't have where they fit in. I went from St. George's to Dockyard, and I've asked young men all the same question. What's your passion? They all tell me they have no idea. That's a bad thing for a generation today. With all the technical opportunities that's available to them. I mean, today's generation, you don't even need a career. The internet can get you paid for just talking on the YouTube. So they need an occupation. You got billionaires throughout Bermuda, millionaires throughout Bermuda. How come we don't just mentor young men and show them how we became wealthy? Because a lot of these young men are doing what they're doing because they want to see their mothers and their grandmothers out of the struggle. It's really about a struggle that they want to get out of, but they're so angry. And a lot of them right now, what's taking place is revenge on something that's happened back in 2016. A lot of the fights and wars and stabbings that's taking place, these are the sons and nephews that are seeking revenge. I know because I told you two of them 2 weeks ago, from two different parts of the island. And they said, all of this is over, is revenge. So if you want to fix it, all the people here, all the people in all the other firms, come together because the government ain't interested. And I'm not being disrespectful, but the government is not interested. I know, because for the last, since 1998, I've said before premiers and heads of governmental departments, and I've asked them what the same thing, can I rent a space so that I can help young men and young women develop a career and become entrepreneurs? And to this present day, from 1998, I'm still telling me no. But they'll sell a piece of land to a person that has no citizenship on oceanfront properties, and nobody's got a problem with that. That's all I'm saying.
Sister Carr will be our last person. Thank you, brother. Sister Carr. Then we'll be at 8 o'clock.
First of all, I just want to apologize. Because I'm not really upset. I'm ashamed that there are no more people in this room that look like me. And everyone thinks it's not a white problem. It's everybody's problem. And I honestly assume that the turnout of white people isn't greater. And I'm just, where are you? Where are you? We are a community. We're a community. And if we don't look out for one another, we knock on everybody's door. So you can't turn your head away and say, oh, not me, not in my neighborhood. It's everywhere. And I say that because for 45 plus years, I've worked in mental health. 30 plus years. Oh, just turn it off. Sorry about that, that was my husband's medication. But I worked in mental health for all of my life. And in Bermuda, I mean, my mentor at the back, Senator Jupiter Wright, was working in mental health when I certainly came on board. And I work in community. I work with Dr. Zena, I work with loads of people in the community. I worked with people who are on the streets, in prison, forensics, wherever. The poverty on this island is horrendous. Yeah, it's horrendous. I've been to people's houses where they have a dirt floor. They're lucky to have a roof. And they function somehow. Children go to school. They're not prepared to go to school. There's too much going on at home. If they have a home, or they're living in circumstances that really do not generate good mentality to go to school. No food in this house. It's real. And we have to start with our own children. And looking at how we support our children from day one right through. There's a big drop-off. Mental health services are bursting at the seams at the moment. I'm retired now, but before I left, we were definitely seeing such a huge increase in people struggling with their mental health. And the system is broken. The systems to support people are so out of date, and it's just crazy the amount of red tape and bureaucracy you have to go through to get help for someone to have a food camp, number one, or to have anything else that's going to help them up the ladder a little bit, and then you see the inequities. So, I honestly don't know where to start. I mean, you know, I hear everything that everybody's saying, but we have to start somewhere. And we have to start shouting. And we have, because let me tell you, when they come around election time to my house, they're like, okay, let me go. Because, you know, I'm not afraid to speak and say what I have to say. And they're uncomfortable with that. They are uncomfortable with that. Because you're hoping, you challenge them, you say, this is not good enough. We have your daughter who's out there missing. How long has she been missing? We still don't know where she is. Where is she? So we're also seeing young girls and young ladies caught up in all of this confusion and chaos. And then all we keep doing, like you say, is talk. But something has to give. And I don't know where we start.
Well, here's what I want to offer as we wrap things up. And thank you for sharing. Let me state this. Conversations are a part of raising awareness. When you raise awareness, in that you are informed about what next steps should be. We cannot stop talking. We have to keep these conversations going. As exhausting as they may be, we have to keep getting together. We have to keep talking. We have to listen to one another. Notice tonight, our panel were forced to listen to all of you. I'm hoping the next time we will have some legislators who will come and be a part of these conversations, because they need to also learn how to listen, to hear the cries of people who really have something at stake. What you will find in this island, unlike in most places, especially developed places that have democracies that are flourishing, you know what? Legislators have to have hearings where people like you and me can come and voice what concerns us about projects that they are or are not carrying out. I heard earlier about reports that have been shared, studies that have been done, and there were no follow-up hearings to find out where are we in the implementation process. You will never, ever see legislators do anything unless they know that we're going to hold them accountable for what they say they're going to do. Case in point, we'll close with this. One of the young brothers who is a legislator knows he's in big trouble because he came here, we sat down and had a conversation, and he lied to me in my face. I've known him since we were little boys. He's a cabinet minister, and he lied to me in my face, and he's been running from me ever since. But Bermuda's 21 square miles from me. And I'm not the guy who I used to be. I'm not trying to hunt him down. I don't have time for all that. But he's going to show up one day. And we're going to have a conversation. And I'm using that as an example of how we need to organize ourselves to hold accountable people who are in positions of authority and privilege, who need to be doing more for our community than they are. It takes all of us. If we're showing up, we're the rest of us. Carlos, thank you for what you shared. That is a part of it. But we have to keep talking. We have to keep getting together. Because as we get together, we receive the information that we need for what next steps should look like. It takes all of us, faith community, educators, healthcare workers, entrepreneurs, social rehabilitation professionals, justice workers, you name it. It takes us all. And you know what happens? When we get better informed and better organized and we develop trust with one another, the devil can't hide. He can't just exist among us. That spirit gets pushed out and gets exposed. And righteousness rises to the top like cream. I'm not preaching to you tonight, but I want to leave with saying that we need more of this. As exhausting as it is, we need more of it because we need to develop the relationships that yield the results that we're looking for. Listen to this as we end. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to run fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We got to go together. Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this night. Thank you for every panelist, for everyone who has shared tonight, for those who have joined us by streaming platform. Thank you for all that you have called us to and to be. Dismiss us with your grace and protection as we leave this place, but never from your presence. And at the appointed time, oh God, allow us to get back together again so that we can first declare our love for you and for one another. Amen. Thank you again.